heroes of Cosplay Sanctuary Season 5, something strange going on. This season, unlike all of my other seasons, I'm actually recording the videos a little differently than I am the podcast. So if you want to head on over to the podcast, what I do every week is break down my YouTube episode on the podcast. So you're going to get 3 days, 3 parts of everything that I'm talking about today. And hopefully I can keep things a little bit shorter for the YouTube video, because every so often we're going to have special guest interviews, special guest videos that are going to come out, and those are going to be a little bit longer. So get used to the format, folks. This is kind of the way that things are going to go on the show from now on. What I want to talk about this season and first is we're going to start with being unproductive as a cosplayer, or just being unproductive in general. And you know what? It's okay sometimes if you want to be unproductive. I mean, there's a huge call for productivity. Productivity is everything. I mean, AI is taking over. We're going to talk about that later in the season and what that means for the cosplayer, what that means for me as somebody who's like trying to create content in this space. But there is just a lot of anxiety about being productive all of the time. You always have to be working on something. You have to be working on a cosplay. You have to be building a YouTube channel. You have to be producing something, whether you make any money at it or not. And I don't know if that's the best message to send to the community. I don't know if that is what I should be telling you. Go and be productive. I have told you to go all in on your ideas, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be productive all of the time. And here's the thing is that when you try to do that, you end up bringing in a lot of anxious energy into your projects and all of that anxiety. This is where all of the, con crunch energy comes from. And yeah, you can produce a lot of work. You can create a lot from that kind of energy, but is it really where you want to spend all of your time? Do you want to be anxious every time you go to a con? Do you want to be anxious every time you create a costume or do anything that relates to collaborating or building a social media platform? No, that is not where you want to be. You want to have relaxed energy, and you want to eliminate this productivity trap that seems to come up so often inside of the cosplay community. And, what am I talking about with anxiety? Well, there's social media anxiety, there's performance anxiety, not that kind of performance anxiety, it's that kind of show. But there is definitely a lot of anxiousness around cosplay, and you want to reduce that. So what do you do? What do you do when your whole world and all of cosplay seems to be relevancy on social media? We all joined Threads a while back, right? Everybody got on Threads because we felt like we had to. And actually, Threads isn't that bad. Maybe I'll talk about that later this season. But there's just anxiety about staying relevant in this space. There's anxiety about being a part of this community, whatever that means, and getting canceled later, I guess. And that you have to constantly perform, that everything we do is on stage. Everything we do has to be this person, this persona, this fictional character that we come up with, but we have to be on. And I'm hearing that a lot from a lot of people who go to cons and who produce the content, is that they're exhausted of being on, of being in the camera, of being on the con floor and owing everyone a certain level of themselves that they aren't normally. I mean, I go to my job every day. I barely interact with people half that time. And when I do, am I just a regular person? Of course I am. I don't have a persona to put on. And yeah, that's just the way this goes. It's the way things are in society today. We feel like we have to be on constantly. And you know what? Here's what I would tell you to do. You have to stop using external validation. You have to stop looking at everyone else for a thumbs up and a like. You have to stop doing it, because the more you think about that, the more that it consumes you, the worse it's going to be for you. And you're going to have all of this anxiousness, and you're going to be producing everything from this really limited scope and viewpoint as a cosplayer, or just as a person in general. Like if you're always scrambling for content, if you're always staying up late, if you're burning yourself out, these are not good things. And the problem with all of it, and what I've really realized since I created content last, is that trying to get everybody to like you is impossible. Okay. And maybe I'm definitely not the first person to say that, but it is. You can't get everyone to like your content. It's just not the way that it works. There's a lot of critical people out there who just don't want to be nice for whatever reason. And you can't care about that. Like, the external validation is all fiction. It really matters what you think about it. It matters how you feel about it. It matters what kind of skills and how you are going to improve from what you're putting in to what you do. That's what this is all about. So what's the answer? What is the answer to your problem? Well, one of the things to do is to not label, right? We talk about that all the time in the cosplay community and in the space. We talk about not putting labels on things and not judging people and not judging the cosplays. Give it some space, but do that within yourself too. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a business coach. I'm not a life coach. So I'm just a guy on the internet telling you what's worked for me. But I'm telling you, you have to give whatever you're feeling, whatever you're dealing with, some space, and not approach everything you're doing for a platform which is provided to you for free, for a platform, for YouTube, for Instagram, for wherever you happen to be, that you have to come to this with a relaxed energy, and you can't force it into existence. And you know what? Maybe you need to learn a little bit more. Maybe I need to learn a little bit more about production and about creating a costume, if that's what I want to do. But it doesn't matter how I get that done. We just make up rules about that. And that's a lot of what happens inside of the community as well. There are a lot of rules that people have to follow. And if we just used common sense, we probably wouldn't need so many rules. But there's a lot of rules about how to create content and what kind of content and when to post and all of these other things that really, when you start to think about all of it and it piles up, you just get crazy anxious about it, right? So what you want to do is focus on what you can control. And I'm sure you've heard all of this everywhere before because it's such a buzzy thing to talk about right now. But if you can't control it, don't worry about it. In cosplay, the great thing is you can control a lot of the outputs. You can control much of what you're doing because you're the creator. You can create whenever you want and however you want, but don't make posting about all of it. Don't make creating the content. And yeah, we're going to try and put more out there this season, but that's on me. And you know what? If I want to change it later, I will, because it's on me. It's what I want to do. It's not what I went and trended and said, well, I have to do this because all of these other Joneses are out there doing it. All of these other cosplay Joneses are out there pumping out content and creating 10 cosplays a month so that they can keep churning through their content. No, that's not what I'm doing with this. And honestly, I have different skills. So why am I going to try and be an amazing costume designer when that's not really where my skill set lies? So don't try and make yourself into something unless that something is what you want to be. So that's what we're going to do this season. We're going to look for what makes you happy, what lights you up, what you get excited about as a cosplayer, not what gets you likes, not what gets you followers, not what gets you external validation, not what makes you money necessarily. Because all of that is going to happen if what you're doing is really what's inside of you to do. That's episode 1, folks. Thanks for being here. Again, check us out on the podcast. Find all the links below in the notes. Subscribe to the channel, however you want to do it. This is a new season, and I am excited to be here for something strange. This is Scotty B, and I will see you soon, everyone. Bye-bye.